just talked about also it could work sometimes. And exactly as we saw, exactly what so we have SQL injection, the act of actually doing something called SQL injection. Now, what is that all about? Now, when you write your code, and I know this is a PHP application, we can start looking at the code. Probably easier for you to understand the whole thing about SQL injection. You've probably seen this sentence before. It's a query, right? Select first and last name from users where ID equal to some sort of variable. Now we see this is an actual raw string going on here. We have no function or method before this line. After that is a direct query call, so it's going to be queried directly up against the database, just right there. Alright, so as you can see, variable query is just right there, and that is a SQL sentence. So there's nothing there doing any sort of input validation or cleanup or check if the data is correct. And you might even say, but why is that necessary, right? So, well, if you have a SQL statement just like that, and you let's take it out. Let's take this out into a constant. Can I copy paste? There you go. In a text file. Then we're gonna dissect it. So you have select statement, and it says select first and last name from users where user ID equal to ID. Now the two first sections here is alright. There's nothing wrong with that, because this is just raw, literal data. No data you wrote. There's no input here. The input is right there. If you imagine now that this variable ID is something that comes from the web, from the user, someone types something in, you could probably imagine something like this: example.com ID equal to 1, then this is going to be read in directly to this variable, so it would actually be like that. Alright, so imagine now that this 1 here is replaced or just extended with the general idea of having a quote, and you say or 1 equal 1. Now what you learned so far is that you just copy paste this part here and replace it there. What you see now is actually a syntax that is correct up until here. I know the space is created by me, let me just remove it. So you see, like, where the user ID is equal to 1 or 1 equals 1. Well, you might think, what is wrong with the sentence? Well, this tick right there probably gonna make the SQL statement fail, triggering some sort of exception in your code. So what you could do is put 2 dashes in the end. Sometimes you should do 1 more dash and so on, but that would actually be like that. The 2 dashes means that everything after this is going to be, ignored, right? So basically what you have here is you say select all first names and all last names from users where the user ID is equal to 1. But you can also say or 1 equal 1, and since this is an or, the 1 equal 1 is always true. So this can be evaluated to or true. So which one is strongest here, right? The true one is strongest. So this would basically, and hold your hats, would basically do 1 out of 2 different things. Well, 2 things it could do. Now, that I would like to show you, because just me telling you that this is a thing, let's go back to the actual application. So we have the SQL injection right here. So if I write something like 1, submit it, we get the first ID of admin, we get 2, and we get first ID of Gordon. But what if I do something like 1 or 1 equal 1, and now we start just practicing stuff, and we see like ID 1, so that's a weird thing. It does something. What if I do this, what I did just before with the tick inside the input? Then I'll get an error. And this error is actually triggered by SQL. Now, as we talked about before, you can see it's an extra dot here in the end. Let me just zoom in a bit. An extra tick. And that tick is this one there. And we haven't commented out. So let's go ahead and try that now. So let's do that. And the 2 dashes, as I talked about before. And now we have one more error. It still doesn't accept it. And let me do an extra one in the end. No. I'm gonna play around with this a bit and see what we will get at. The general thing here is that we verified that we do have SQL injection. Now, there are more ways we can comment out stuff. We can even try and put in a hashtag. And sometimes we can also put the hashtag after that, so we say everything after is gonna be excluded in a way. Now, I totally forgot we need the OR. So let's go back with the 1 and tag. So we say 1, just like we have before here. 1 and the tag, the plain whatever, or 1 I will submit that, and it doesn't want it. So let me try with one more dash in the end, and we just talked about also it could work sometimes. And exactly as we saw, exactly what I said, I just need to do it. Just need to do what I actually say. And you probably yelled at the screen, Daniel, you forgot the OR, why didn't you write the OR? And I'm like, yeah, I know, but I forgot. But anyways, we have it. So this would actually trigger a select all statement. As we discussed before, the true is stronger. So it would basically negate and say, well, maybe you have this one here, which is strong, but it does actually say, select everything you can do if that or that is true. And this is always true because 1 = 1 is always true. That is a general thing about SQL injection, and we actually talked about what it is and how you can exploit it. Now, SQL injection is more than this. There are different kinds of SQL injections. You have something called blind SQL injection, but there's also something called timed SQL injection, or you can call it delayed SQL injection. And these are variations of the same as you saw me do right now. This is of course the very, very basic one. And when you up the security levels to medium, it's gonna get harder and harder. And it's gonna become, you know, really difficult at the end. So this is just raw SQL injection. I really hope you understood it and you're ready to go ahead and try out more SQL injection on your own. I want to say that SQL injection is really just all about injecting arbitrary, you know, SQL command that's going to be interpreted by the SQL method or function you call. In this particular case, it's going to be the SQL query. What is needed here in order to protect against SQL injection is something called prepared statements. Now, or parameterized statements, someone also called it here and there. I prefer prepared statements because it is statements. These are the statements that are prepared before you actually do the query to execute up against your database. So this was SQL injection on damn vulnerable web application. Gonna see you again online. Have a really nice day.